Welcome to Nerd Stuff. This is the first episode that I've bothered recording, but truth be told, nerd stuff is all around us all the time. I'm your host, bluesoul, SCP Wiki administrator and technical team co-captain. We have been doing a ton of work over about the last 2 to 3 weeks, and I thought I would give something of a status report, let people know what's going on. I want to remind people there will be no discussion of SCPs, tales, or anything in this episode. This is strictly a technical discussion of the situation so far as it pertains to the tech team and the Wikidot migration efforts. So consider this in the vein of a dev blog as it relates to our ability to potentially host our own Wikidot. So to catch up briefly, when we talk about Wikidot, we have two things that we're talking about. Wikidot is our host. They also provide our platform, the actual software that the wiki runs on. For the sake of convenience, they're both called the same thing, Wikidot. That's a pattern, by the way. You're going to see a lot of that when we start talking about things being given the same name. But that's kind of burying the lead. Let me catch you up with what got us here. A few months ago, I reached out to a longtime community member of the Wikidot community, not the SCP community, but the larger Wikidot community, a gentleman by the name of Ed Johnson. Ed had a long time ago released a version of Wikidot based off of the open source version. They used to have a subversion repository that people were contributing code to and so on. It was licensed GPL3, and so he had this virtual machine, this Ubuntu VM, running 8.04 to give you an idea of how old this thing is, that hosted the Wikidot in a box, basically. It was a VM, and it had it doesn't use Apache, it uses Light TPD, or Lighty as they like to call it, and Postgres and Memcached, and it just all in one box. I reached out to him in April, and he had indicated he did still have it because I went looking for it and couldn't find it. So he tracked it down, uploaded it to his Google Drive. I was able to get it. And between that VM and the code that was published to GitHub by a former Wikidot employee, we, for the first time, had enough to start actually, hey, this runs. I'll be damned. We can do something with this. So from there, from April to late May, I wasn't playing with it the whole way, but towards the back half of May, I was in it quite a bit and realizing that this is not totally out of the realm of possibility that we could make this work. The trouble has been that so much of this is rooted in old design patterns. A lot of code was written for, all the code was written for PHP 5 because nothing newer existed at the time. Most of this is 5.2 or 5.3 era PHP. Those were kind of the bad old days of PHP. And so the first thing when I was like, hey, this installation in a box actually works. What do we need to do to get this running on PHP 7.4, which is our current latest stable? And I, about 17 days ago now, started putting some issues up. Like, okay, here's functions that are now deprecated or totally removed in the intervening time. Track those down. And we had, 11 here, 24 there, 6 here, 80 of them over here, 4 here, 1 here, and then a couple of scattered other things that you just can't do anymore. But I was able to work through them. Actually got, the code into, workable shape for PHP 7. So then the question is like, okay, well, this should theoretically run. Can we get it to? So I started working in an EC2 instance in AWS, running Ubuntu 20.04, and threw this code on there, installed memcached, installed Postgres, and futzed with it for a while. Lighty is new to me. I don't even really know the viability of it long term. It's not doing anything that Apache or Nginx couldn't probably do better at this point, but I'm kind of picking and choosing my battles right now. So, but lo and behold, it actually runs. So we have been, since then, working in earnest. Once we got the thing stood up, it started, the question shifts to, okay, this code is fully 12 years old now, and Wikidot has had at least a couple of things change. I mean, look, the interface is actually not very different for 12 years. Okay, well, the markup is, that's actually mostly the same too. This might actually be really close to ready, just as it is. Well, it's not quite. One of the things that I'd always told people when we were talking about rolling our own solution from the ground up was the things you're going to run into, the thing that's really going to bite you is the module system, because making it work exactly the way that Wikidot does is going to be a complete pain in the ass. And I've been working with this code base now for about 3 weeks in earnest, and I 100% stand by that assessment. Modules are not great. At the heart of modules, and at the heart of Wikidot in general, is a platform called Ozone. Now, this confused the hell out of all of us for a long time, because we make reference to, or I say we, Wikidot in its past has made reference to a software called OzoneDB that is a thing written in Java that's a hierarchical database management system, not a relational, a hierarchical. This is the shit they used to do in the 60s, and they thought it was going to be a great idea to do this in 2003. It wasn't. They also have their, basically their object, it's not really ORM, it's mostly an abstraction layer for classes to tables. There's not a lot of relationships defined between them, so it's not really ORM, but it is this kind of convoluted fucking thing that's also called Ozone. And that threw us all for a loop for a long time, and it's only been in the last 2 weeks that I think we've really gotten a handle on it. We have OzoneDB and we have Ozone PHP, and they're only marginally connected. But Ozone PHP, this Ozone library, is at the heart of everything in Wikidot, and it's so ingrained that the user table in Postgres is actually called Ozone_user. All of the user management is through Ozone. Every query, anything that involves an object in Wikidot, ultimately runs through Ozone's query engine. The idea for some of this was because they wanted to abstract away the queries, so depending on whether you wanted to run MySQL or Postgres, you could use Ozone for either or. So I understand that. Like, I do a lot of work these days with the Laravel framework, and the ability to just, choose my database engine of choice, whether it's SQLite or Postgres or MySQL or even SQL Server, and have it handle all the other shit is awesome. I love that. They only actually got as far as Postgres, though. They never did anything else. So it's just this really, overwrought system for very little gain. The modules themselves have three components to, three methods that most modules take. They have a build, which is, this is Let me back up here because I was just talking about two things being the same name. Okay, so I want to get to talking about module CSS because I had to build this from scratch, and there's very little documentation even in the code. This isn't like, oh, the code documents itself. Hell no. So you have to have the module in a directory in php/modules/ whatever, new module /css/css module.php. You also need a template. This is in the Smarty templating language. That is in templates/modules/ the exact same path. You cannot deviate. If you need to call a JavaScript file, it needs to be the exact same name. It needs to be in the same structure. Because I said so. That's why. That was really frustrating, but eventually figured it out. So you have a build method that is where you sort of you create your queries and you get any related data that you're going to need for your module. And then if you choose not to override the base render method, if you add these contexts with the context add method that they created, those variables become exposed in your Smarty template. Okay, that makes sense. But for something like module CSS, where there's really no direct analog in this code base, where it was like, it's just going to insert arbitrary style sheets. Originally, like the actual contemporary version sticks them in the head. I still don't know how to do that. It's not really important, if we're being honest. As long as the style sheet is somewhere, it's going to render. But I didn't have that background. So I saw build, I saw render, and then I saw process page. And if you've got this process page variable set to true, it looks like, oh, this looks like you can insert some code. Well, all right. So I tried that route, and I didn't know about what build did. I'm just like, okay, this technically works, only the style sheet is showing up in like 5 fucking places. I got better, and at this point, I actually feel like I've got a reasonably good understanding of how the module system works. Trying to recreate it elsewhere would be a real pain. Trying to recreate the text wiki library, that they've done this in a number of places. They overrode vendor files. There was no composer. They weren't even using, pair, peckle, none of the package management stuff that PHP has been able to do for 2 decades. I think they literally just grabbed shit, unzipped it, stuck it in lib, and they had something of an autoloader in setup.php, and I'm slowly getting it moved over to Composer, which is actually, it's incredibly cool that I'm able to do this and have stuff work. But they were overwriting vendor files, and that's whack. We really got screwed trying to update a vendor package and then say, oh, this method doesn't exist. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So we go looking through old versions of the code. It's like, well, shit, it didn't exist there either. So now we got to go back through the commits, and it's like, oh, so they just didn't make it their own library. They just decided they would never, ever update it, and instead inserted their own code here. Awesome. So what we're going to be doing is taking the last of these libraries that are stuck in lib and have proprietary code and turning them into Composer packages. And that way we'll get kind of the best of both worlds. We can keep working on making those work in a modern context, which we'll certainly need to do because they kept fucking with these vendor packages. And this way we can control it. We can push new versions through Composer. Other people will be able to use them, which is kind of cool. You'll be able to extend our version of, say, Text Highlighter, which I just released a package for today. Text Wiki, which I'll be doing soon. I've got a pull request to go over where we cleaned up a bunch of code and regular expressions in it. But we'll be moving Text Wiki into Composer with all of Wikidot's new additions like module and raw and all this other stuff that they decided they couldn't live without. We'll be moving ozone PHP for the first time to a package management system. And that way we can continue working on it. We can control that through code. I'm really excited about all this because I don't like fucking with shit in these lib directories, and you're just setting yourself up for failure because sooner or later you're going to need to update. You're going to need something, and there's a big something coming, and it's the Zend framework. This is like the thing I'm kind of dreading, and not like I haven't really given myself permission to think about it yet, because if you've been on Wikidot, if you've been on the wiki, let's say within the last 6 months, you probably noticed we were having an issue if you were on Chrome, where if you were going to scpwiki.net, you could not get logged in. No way, no how. That is because they are using, at some point, they're using the Zend framework for cookies. And I haven't really bothered chasing down where that happens yet. In the code, I've just had other things that I had to triage above it, but it's coming very soon. But Zend framework is involved, and it looks like it's attached here and there. And so much of the shit was not namespaced. Like, namespacing was nowhere to be found in this code base. And namespacing is now, like, ubiquitous in PHP. So all the shit has to get namespaced to get... so the new version of Zend, which is now not even Zend anymore, it's Laminas or something like that. It's only been, like, in the last couple of months that they pushed a patch to allow for the same site flag to be adjusted. This is what we need for logins to work on custom domains. Without this, we're screwed. We will have the exact same issue until we get it fixed. The good news here is we're in a way better position to get it fixed, in my opinion, than Wikidot is, because Wikidot's been dead at the wheel since last April. So Tech has been working really hard on this code base. Myself, AIS Mallard, Croquembouche have all been really kind of busting our ass on this. We've got a Jira, we've got a Confluence. The Jira has something in excess of 170 documented issues to work through in 17 days. So those guys have been doing so much of the work there, and it's such a relief having that support in place. I've been doing the bulk of the PHP work just because I know PHP. I've been fucking with it in various forms since 2005. But having the team that everybody's all in, everybody wants this to work, everybody wants this to happen. And, you know, you've got guys that are wanting to they're going to pick up PHP. You know, Croquembouche is like trying to get his shit set up to actually see his code changes, you know, affect the code base. That's really cool to me. If you want to contribute code, the GitHub is at github.com/scpwiki/wikidot. Feel free to create a fork. That is the Git strategy at this point. We're all going to be making forks and pulling master. Master will not have any pushes, just pulls, and go from there. By all means, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to... I will take as much time as you want to talk shop. If we want to talk PHP, if we want to talk strategy, you're probably, you know, if you've been doing PHP and you got paid for it, you're probably better at this than me. I'm a sysadmin. Like, I do that shit by trade. I'm not a professional programmer, but I am a long-time hobbyist, and with more and more of my day job becoming this DevOps mentality and having to know the whole stack, it's something where I've started treating it more professionally. So I can fake it with the best of them, and that's a hell of a start. I'll take it. If you wish to see the bug board for Wikidot, it is at scuttle.atlassian.net/browse/wdbugs. We have quite a few. If I look at the latest, we are at 171 bugs listed. We've got some epics. We've got There is plenty of opportunity for people to get involved. Even if you don't know PHP, let me tell you, there's a lot of code, there's a lot of verbiage in here that is written by folks for whom English is not their first language. There is what looks to be an attempt at a system for internationalization, but it's not fully present in this edition. If I can get that together, I feel like that would be a great opportunity for people if they want to do translation work, if they want to, take these phrases, hey, it needs to match whatever this meaning is in English, please, give us the appropriate equivalent phrase in, I don't know, Portuguese, Italian, whatever. There's going to be a lot that people can do to help. And even without translation, some of the English in here is busted. It could use a keen eye and a little bit of help. So where we're at now, to recap, several of us have local working copies of Wikidot. We are making polls to master. Master is currently at wikidork.com. You can register there. We ripped out the entire horribly dated authentication system that used MD5. We've replaced that with a modern non-roll your own bullshit using password crypt and the bcrypt algorithm with a little bit of extra processing power. And we'll kind of take that into consideration if we ever do move to prod. What can we get away with for latency, because if we bump that cost from 11 to like 15, you really do notice the additional latency in hashing the password. But it's got a secure system. It does send you emails to register, and if you forgot your password, and you can create your own wiki. I will tell you, there are almost certainly still security holes. We fixed some with with the module CSS. We're looking through the rest of the code base, and this is something that, even if you're just trying to poke holes in shit and just trying to break stuff, there's value in that right now. We can absolutely take that. So anything you think you can contribute, please let me know. I will be posting a link to this in the Project Foundation discussion forum on scpwiki.net, where you can comment there as well. I'm going to leave you for now. We'll see about doing a follow-up episode in a week or 2 weeks. I've not decided which, but we'll see how much progress we get. I suppose that'd make the most sense. So thank you for listening. Your attention is always appreciated. Your support is always appreciated. And we'll see you next time.